Good morning. Welcome to our Friday post. Today is our doodle day, but I really didn't cover any major quilt designs last week other than maybe the feathering, and I didn't get any feedback on what you might like to see. So one thing that I've noticed as we've gone through some of these quilts is that I get in the habit of just saying, I can do this, I can do this, and I can do this on a quilt block, but I don't explain how to come up with some of those designs or how I might look at the quilt block to put those in. And that's really the purpose of this, is to get you thinking on your own of what you may be able to do. So I want to go through that a little today, and I'm going to draw with my magic marker and my plexiglass, and then I'm going to stitch something out for you. So I have an old quilt block that I haven't finished using, and this was from one of my very first quilts that I free motion quilted, and it is a friendship star. Got a plain purple and then a printed fabric. So I want to talk through this a little bit more. We know the part about, can we do an all over quilting design on this? Yes, we could do that. We could do a many amount of designs. Can we find a secondary design? Well, actually we could if we did something here. What I did was I have something else in mind that I'm going to show you. And so I made diagonal lines right through these blocks. And if I put several of these blocks together, imagine this, and then imagine another one beside it, you would have some secondary designs and some background things that you could do. So there could be a secondary design in a quilt. With a block, there's really not a secondary design. And then, I could do feathers on this. I could just plop a circle wreath down, and I could do feathers on there. I could do some specific floral designs in the squares. So those are things that would be easy to think through. But as far as what can I do specifically with this block with some easier quilting, it may take some thoughts as to what I can do. So one thing that helps is to always be thinking of teardrops, continuous lines, seed stitching, anything like that, and play around with those on your blocks. Now, on this block, I want to somehow bring out the star points. So what I would do is just like I'm going to do, or just like I did on some of those quilts, I'm going to put this down here. Okay, for some reason I can never get the whole picture that I want, but so let's look and see some things that we could do in that manner. Now what we could do is I could come in a 1/2 inch all the way around on this block. That's always something to look for. Can I do some inner coming in on it? Not an echoing, but coming in. Well, sure. I could go around the whole block like that a couple of times. I could also start in the center and come in 1/4 inch on each one, and I could detach them, or I could keep them together like I'm doing here. And I've got something like that. Let me hold that up so you can see it better. And that's great on this block. That would be fantastic. Or I could also, and I know you can't see all of this, but you can see enough, and I'm going to go through it pretty quickly. I can do it detached, where I could echo in on this in each area, or I could continue coming around it, never lifting up anything, never separating my threads, and echo inside of each one of these. There we go. And I could do it a couple times if I wanted to. This is fantastic, actually. I love that design. I would probably consider doing that. So, actually, I'm going to change course right now because this is a great design. So let's talk about what else you could do on this block if we went with this design. And then I'm going to stitch something out. I may change my whole plan. We could go ahead around the purple if we want, or actually, so we could, let's remember that we want to outline our 1/4 inch all the way around. In this case, I have the points of the stars to help me, to keep me so that I don't cover, the binding doesn't cover up the points. So I can come in and do a seed stitch 1/4 inch. And then I can go ahead like I showed you the other day, and I can do this design in it. Then back up, just make sure you're about a 1/4 inch. That works, but I don't want to really not touch, so I could continue going around each of these. And I can go all the way around this block. Let me just draw this for you real quick. So here we go. And I might make some boo-boos because I'm kind of going fast now, but that way I can get it all in here in a good amount of time. All right, so now I've gone around every corner, every seam, and gone all the way around that block, and look what I came up with. It's fantastic. This will be fine for a block, and it will look good. You could also come inside of it, which was what I had planned to do. We can leave that outside, and there's other things we could come up with, but these, we're just using seed stitches by going around, and we might come up and do one of these little designs in between it. You could do anything you really want. You could come in, which is what I've showed you some, and let's work with that seed stitch. Let's start with the center. Get you a little bit closer. Let's start with that center and do that 1/4 inch around that way. And then we'll come on the inside. We can even come inside a little bit more if we wanted to. And then you've seen these loops that I've had. We can do the loops. And these loops really help define the star as well. And we can end up with this. That works great too. It works fantastic. So the way I'm coming up with some of those designs for the quilts is by just working with curves and loops, putting them anywhere that they can work with, that they can fill up the area, and then coming up with something, simple to add to it in any negative space. So it's simple for everybody to do. I'm actually going to change some of the teaching that I do in my basic class is going to include some of this, because then people can go home and they can quilt a quilt block at home with pretty simple stitching, even if you have to use a marking tool to mark it first. So let's stitch out some of this. And I'm actually going to show how you can do this on a quilt block. And it's not too hard, any harder than just any free motion quilting. So we'll go ahead and do that loopy design. And I'm going to make sure that I can get this in this screen. I'm sorry, sometimes it's harder than others. I think if I move this, everything's going to be in there. There we go. All right. So we'll bring our threads to the top. And then the first thing I'm going to do is this seed stitch around each of these. And you just eyeball it, or you can draw it ahead of time if you'd like. And I'm just going to come up about 1/4 inch and then back down. make sure you can see. You can, but it's kind of distant. And then I'll go and do that last one. Alrighty. Then we'll go on the bottom side, and I didn't quite touch there. There we go. Then we'll go on the bottom side all the way around. I'm off to the edge of this so that I can get the camera in. So I can't see on this side very well. Normally I can, but because of that, I can't. So I'm going to move this. I'm going to rotate it, which I normally wouldn't do. All right. So there's our center design. And now I'm going to go ahead and do those loops. Let me make sure I'm not in your way of seeing. I'll follow that 1/4 inch for just a moment. These stitch regulators drive me wacky sometimes, so I'm going to go to my manual mode. There we go. And I'm going to go ahead and rotate this so I can see better. I'm way off to this side. All right, that part is done. So now I'm going to go around each part to echo on the outside 1/4 inch. And I will start right here. Let's see, actually we'll start right here coming up. All righty. And then I'm going to go 1/4 inch over to this seam. Now, if you watch where you're going and not where you're at, then you'll be able to see that 1/4 inch and inch a little bit better. So I'm always watching the my 1/4 inch sight that I want to see. So we're going all the way around, and I'm only going to stop one time because I want to on this whole block. That around. Now you can even make a little mark as to where that 1/4 inch mark is if you want to. I just try to watch it as I go around and keep my eye on what I think my mark is. I did not stitch in the ditch in this, and this is probably what this is, but if I were going to do this on this quilt block, I would go all the way around the friendship star and make sure I stitched in the ditch around it. Okay, so just a little bit. It still gives us a pretty good idea of what this would look like. We'll go this way. And we'll come back and close this up. Okay, and I rushed through this, kind of half paying attention to everything. Let's real quickly, actually, before we do this, before I show it to you, let me just go inside of this block that's in the center. And we'll just, what we'll do is I'm going to use the edge of my foot to guide me where the 1/4 inch is, and I'll just try to go in pretty close to a true 1/4 inch. And we'll go from there. And you could go in a couple of times, or I could go in further if I wanted to. When it's in between these two lines, you'll know you're there. I'm going to turn it around so I can see real quick. I'll stitch over the first ones just a tiny bit to secure it. So remember that I kind of rushed through this, so I didn't take too much time. So I wasn't super careful at all. You would be very careful if you were on a quilt. So let's just look at that. What we have now is a whole quilt block done, and very cute and pretty quick timing. So we could add to this. Now if we wanted to up the level of quilting, we could go right in the middle of this if we wanted to, and we could do some swiggles back and forth, or we could do pebbles in it. We could go in the middle of each one of these. We could do some quilting in here if we wanted to. Just a lot of things we could do with that. We could echo part of this here so that it was filled in a little bit more. But this quilt block alone would be fine. So hope you enjoyed that. Hope you're beginning to think about the things you could do on the quilt block, not just what I'm doing. So have a super weekend. We will see you Monday with a new quilt. Bye-bye now.